Yo, yo, get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast. And that's facts.
Good morning, Bears Nation, and welcome back to Bears on Tracks. I'm Brandon Trax Hyde, and today we're live breaking down day 2 of the 2025 NFL Draft from the heart of Chicago sports headquarters. We've got former Bears legend Doug Plank joining me on stage right now. And we're about to tear into Colston Loveland pick and map out the rest of our draft strategy on the mock draft simulator here in a little bit. Hope everybody's having a great TGI Friday. Let's get right into it. Doug, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing great. Wonderful.
Awesome. Now we're going to get right into the Loveland game changer, man. Why he's a game changer. Let's kick it off, man. At number 10 overall, the Bears select Colston Loveland. This guy is a game changer, folks. Standing at 6'6", 248 pounds. You can't coach that. Loveland registered 117 catches for 1,466 yards, 11 touchdowns over 3 seasons in Ann Arbor. He was a first-team All-Big Ten in 2023, a second-team All-American in 2024. Even with a 2-game shoulder absence, Ryan Poles said he was sold on Loveland's versatility, blocking chops, and route running chops. This makes him just the 3rd tight end the Bears have ever taken in round 1 in the common draft era. That's how rare of a prospect he is. He fits the Big Ben Johnson vision, motion, mismatches, all the good stuff. He gives Caleb Williams a security blanket, explosive weapon in one package. Doug Plank, the hit machine. Once again, folks, we want to welcome Doug Plank in the building right now. This guy, he's been around to talk about it, to be about it. He's played it. He's coached it. He's done it all, folks. So glad we could have him in the building to talk about his expertise at so many different levels, man. He played safety for darn near a decade. And, you know, he patrolled the back end. Guys, he was all over. He was all planet. Now, Doug, I got a question for you. You were the heart of the 46 defense. How does a pass-catching phenom like Loveland change the defensive game planning against your old scheme or any scheme in the NFL, Doug?
You know, I'll just say this. I think tight ends are that your blocker, runner. They literally can do everything. And they are a nightmare for safeties and cornerbacks because they're athletic, they're tall, they're fast. You know, the old days of the lumbering tight end, blocking linemen, those days are long gone. And what you see right now is the NFL going in the future. Somebody that's tall, 6'6". Right. And, you know, here's the other thing. When you go to a major university like the University of Michigan, they had tremendous success over his time there in Ann Arbor. And you are playing with other would-be NFL players. I got drafted in the 12th round by the Chicago Bears. But when I arrived here in Chicago, the fact that I had been playing with first-round draft picks in the secondary, and it made sense that I was only a special teams player. But by practicing with those guys every day, that's what I love about this guy. Not only does he look good on film, he's had competition. He's been up against he's played the big games, and you know they've won the big games a lot of times. But you are around individuals that are so motivated every day. They think about getting better, winning football games, and making their university proud, including themselves. So I think this was an excellent choice, especially when you can put two tight ends up there, two legitimate tight ends that can block, that can receive. They're larger targets for the quarterback. Nobody ever thinks about that. I was a quarterback in high school. I loved throwing the tight ends. It was hard to overthrow them or underthrow them. They were all tall. They had incredible reach. And, especially in the conference that they are going to be in, I mean, they're going to be out there battling some tough teams every single week. And you cannot get enough good players on that line of scrimmage because it's going to totally determine what kind of quarterback you are, or in my case, what kind of free safety you are. When they're back there just basically putting pressure on the quarterback constantly, you get interceptions, you get fumble returns, you get all those sort of things. But if you do not have that person there to block, on that line of scrimmage, that's very, very important. And also be a threat, not just on third down, but any down.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about third down, any down. This is a guy that can play every down. He could stretch the field. Like I said, I like hearing from a safety's perspective how quickly a rookie tight end could impact the red zone and seam route coverage assignments. How quickly do you think it will take him to get ready to make an impact? Could you potentially see an immediate impact with this rookie, Doug? Or do you think that realistically we need to, give him a little bit of time to get ready and, make his leap into the NFL?
He's already familiar with playing in front of 100 every game that he plays in Ann Arbor. He's under intense game plan, with the offense that they ran.
Yeah.
I never heard of this guy making many mistakes. And just watching him play live like I did these last couple of years, and especially on tape, he's smart. Yeah. He's intelligent. Here's the other thing. He never stops. When he goes and blocks somebody, and I liken myself like that on special teams, it wasn't good enough to block one guy. I wanted to try to block as many as I could. Sometimes it was two, sometimes it was three players on one play that I was able to knock off their feet. And I see that in him. He's got that sort of mentality, and he's smart. I don't see him out of position. He's not running the wrong routes. He makes great adjustments when he goes downfield in reading the defense and running accordingly route against that defense. If everybody's back deep, like protecting themselves for a long bomb, he just sits down. He turns around at 15 or 20 yards. He does all the things that you would want to have done by a tight end.
And I also look at him as a threat at slot. I look at him as a threat in the backfield, H-back. I could see him lining up in multiple different places, kind of giving you, that Dallas Clark, the converted linebacker over to tight end. He played for the Colts in that long, stretch there where Peyton Manning and all those guys are really good. Dallas Clark, solid player, converting over from linebacker to tight end. That's a little crazy. Similar to what you were talking about, being a quarterback and then moving over to safety, always changing just depending on where the team needs you. And, listen, when you look at a guy like him at tight end, he just jumps out at you. And the numbers are a little tricky because the whole game plan around Tyler Warren at Penn State was Tyler Warren. The running game was immense at Michigan. The run was heavy. The pass was not so much. I do believe he had under 60 targets, and the rest of the Michigan Wolverines receiving corps had equivalent, the same as him, or a little bit more. But that's the whole entire receiving room had about the same as he did as far as targets. That's how much they ran the damn football over there with the Michigan Wolverines. So when you look at those numbers and you look at the national media and what they push and what they, are telling us, you have to look at the whole body of work, because sometimes we just want to jump out and look at numbers and try to make sense of it. And that's fine, rightfully so, but we got to keep it a buck. We got to really look at it and look. There's two different situations. One guy was targeted half as much, where the whole entire offense was running through one guy, in Tyler Warren with Penn State. And the other guy, it was run heavy. And then when you really need, a target, we're going to go ahead and throw to him. And there's some pretty nice, I'd like to review the tape really quick. So let's go ahead and look at that tape. And then we'll get into the second day 2, which will be tonight up at Bridges Scoreboard. I'll be interviewing the baseball team for Griffith, Indiana, our local area, our local legends, 2 baseball captains along with their head coach. We're really excited. And then right after that, we are going to have live coverage with Regional Sports Network color commentator Jay Simmons, local legend up here. It's going to be a good time. We're going to be covering the draft, lots of good stuff, tip boards, all kinds of stuff at Bridges Scoreboard, your North Indiana, Chicago sports headquarters, with the coldest beer in Chicagoland and the best wings. I love their wings. I love their pizza. I'm getting hungry just talking about it, man. And I don't want to lose Doug, so I'll stop talking about food. But let's watch this video really quick of I almost said Sam Laporta, because that's what a lot of people are saying this guy looks like. So let's take a look at this guy. Here we go.
Play action. J.J. McCarthy lobs it wide open. Caught at the 10, 5, touchdown, Colston Loveland. Here's the reverse. No, it's McCarthy throwing in the corner. Touchdown, Michigan. Play action for McCarthy. Steps up, and as he throws, doesn't matter. Colston Loveland, touchdown, Michigan. McCarthy feeling the pressure. McCarthy throws, caught down the sideline. Loveland breaks it in. Touchdown, Wolverines. Spot for this Michigan State defense. Now it looks like a free play. Oh, no flag yet. Did come in on the near side. Doesn't matter. Here's a touchdown to Colston Loveland. J.J. McCarthy recognized it. Let it rip. 2nd and 10. McCarthy, a dart, and it's complete. Touchdown number 2 for Colston Loveland. Receiving capabilities. Play action. Warren over the middle. It's Loveland in stride. Loveland stays up. Touchdown, Michigan. There's your man. Tuttle looking to the air. Tuttle.
Oh, he had his tight end. Missed
Now
it.
has to escape. Throws. Oh, it's there. Loveland. Touchdown. Tuttle.
Warren, wide open. Touchdown, Loveland. This moment we talked about a must-win game. He's shown up big for the Wolverines. Edwards gets a toss. He's passing it. Touchdown! Colston Loveland is second of the game.
Warren. Loveland. Touchdown.
When you look at this guy, Doug, a lot jumps out at you. What in particular about it do you really like? What is it that you see that excites you looking at this guy? And what is it that you think will help us out with? What's going to help out, take the pressure off our quarterback, help stretch the field, and make us pretty hard to play against, as far from a defensive perspective, looking at it from your vantage point as a safety? What do you see out there? And as a coach too, let's not forget you were a coach also.
Yeah, there's no doubt. He recognizes defense just like the quarterback does. If they're playing like a 2 deep, and that means the corners, they're in a flat, they're playing half the field. He'll run to the middle of the field and sit down at 10 to 15 yards, a very soft. Every defense has a soft area in it, except for man-to-man, which then you run the risk of getting beat deep. If you get beat deep on, if someone beats you in man-to-man coverage, it's probably going to be a touchdown. Zone breakdowns are more like 5 or 10 yards. But I admire his quick takeoff from his tight end position, how he can get up his top speed really quickly, and he recognizes and reads the coverages on his routes. And he sits down and he makes great catches. Obviously we haven't seen him drop anything here. I was impressed with even some of his blocking techniques. When they ran the ball, in games against Ohio State, which I saw all those, I thought he did a really, really good job of just, getting in front of people that were much bigger and probably stronger than him, but get them moved out of the hole, so they could have a successful run game also. So I just think that, and here's the other thing. We are fans. Are we in meetings all week talking about the defenses and what we're planning on doing? No, we're not. We're not evaluating players. Coaches are doing that. And for them to go ahead and make a choice at this player, they have obviously already felt very comfortable about that in all the meetings, all the things that they've done scouting, their scouts, their coaches. It isn't just a scout. It's the head coach. Sometimes it's even a general manager. So they must feel very good with him, putting him at first pick.
How do you feel about it? Where's your thoughts? Are you okay with this? Do you see where it makes sense? I mean, is he potentially, if he's best player available and you were a former tight end coach, like Ben Johnson. So obviously you're a good evaluator of a tight end position. You already know who you've got in the building at tight end and you feel like you need more. Are you okay with what's going on here? Do you see where this makes sense? Do you see why he did what he did? And do you feel like we could still go out and get value with the other 6 picks available? And the fact that we also, I'm giving you a loaded question here. I'm giving you a lot to unpack, but you're going to have plenty of time, brother. The thing about it is like, we could have traded and lost, a pick or two into moving up into another position or somebody that, we might, be in love with. We might be in love with. You see what I'm trying to say? So, but the fact that we didn't, the fact that we still have, these 6 picks available, are you willing to go ahead and sit back and see what is going on for the rest of this, draft?
No, I really think I like this choice. I like the coaches. I like the coach that's there right now. I think he's a smart coach. He's already proven his success. And I'm not criticizing any of the teams that were there before, but I don't, I think they're under much better guidance at this point in time. Play calling, attitude, meetings. It isn't just about playing the game. When coaches can prepare their team to play and they all got game faces on Sunday, that's the coach you want. And Mike Ditka was that coach. Buddy Ryan for the defense was that coach. And, those guys were able. And here's the other thing. When you look at this team, the trouble they've had on the line of scrimmage over the last couple of years, who would want to be play quarterback? I'll never forget when Justin Fields, his first year, as athletic as he was, I think he got his first game, he was sacked like 8 times. Wow. How can you let that happen with an athletic quarterback? And that I'm not criticizing the Chicago Bears. All I'm saying is you've got a plan for the worst scenario. And then with a tight end like that can run and get open, he can beat safeties. He's got long reach. He can block. And here's the other thing. Tight ends generally run routes where the ball can be dumped immediately. You don't want your quarterback in the pocket, 1,005, 1,006, 1,007. No. Yeah. He is subject to a blitz or some coverage or a breakdown on one-on-one blocks. Yeah. You want to have a guy that is target. Think about the great passing teams over through the history of the National Football League. They've all had a tight end.
Yeah.
Usually an all-pro tight end, because he was the go-to guy. If everybody else got jammed, you know what? Him against the safety is a great mismatch.
Yeah.
And that's why I see a lot of the postings by fans going, but we need offensive linemen, but we need a pass rush.
Yeah.
We need coverage in the secondary. Hey, this football stuff starts now with offense and scoring. And if you don't have an offense, it was so hard for me to play a defensive safety and go out there with the Chicago Bears, and I look up and the scoreboard says, we won a lot of games 7-6. Usually if you got 2 touchdowns in a game, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm overpowered.
Yeah.
And we had one of the greatest running backs of all time, Walter Payton.
Yeah.
So my point is, you put points on the board, it changes the game.
Yeah.
It changes what the offense does. And it changes certainly the confidence you have on defense. You're out there going, man, we've got the lead.
Yeah.
Look out, man. We're kicking butt. We're just going to take it to them.
No, yeah, and you bring up a good point in the fact that, listen, there's just something that Ben Johnson has been speaking about. Everybody knows about it. His famous saying is,
yes,
no block, no rock. So if the receivers are not blocking, they're not going to get any targets. They're not going to get any catches. So talk about a tight end and the difference for a block from a tight end compared to receiver, what you see there at your vantage point.
I never ran into a receiver that I didn't like to run into. There's some out there that are great. They were faster than me. They could catch and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
No receiver that I could ever remember wanted to go head-to-head with Gary Fensick or myself in some collision contest. If we were coming up real quick to support a run, I can't remember ever a wide receiver coming in to try to block me or Gary. And so the bottom line is, it's a different mindset. It's a totally different mindset with the tight end. I ran into plenty of tight ends. I wish I didn't have to run into them. The Dave Caspers of the world, huge, athletic, they could catch, they could block, they could do literally everything. And the number one thing, like I said, when you have a good tight end,
yeah,
your running game is going to be a lot better, because it's like having an extra lineman on the line of scrimmage that can block.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? He can also catch.
Yeah.
And when you're standing next to a guy, you're 5'11", like I am.
Yeah.
You're standing next to a guy 6'6", with a reach, that could probably dunk the basketball, just, jumping up, dunking it there underneath the basket. You don't realize how threatening, what a threat he is. The closer you get to him, you're thinking to yourself, do I really want to hit this guy?
Yeah.
He's so big. And then here's the other thing, Brandon. Think about what offenses in this league, not just now, but through the history of the NFL, never had a tight end, and they're high scoring.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
You need that tight end, even for distraction, even if he's distracting from the running game or the passing game, you absolutely need that stud tight end. And I think they've got it.
Well, look in the Super Bowl. Look at the Super Bowl. Okay. Look at the Eagles. Look at who they had, Look at the Chiefs. Look who they have. I mean, geez, man, those are 2 tight ends right there. Going back to your days, Kellen Winslow, Dan Fouts, 49ers, they've tight ends for days, forever. They've always had a tight end over there. Ditka, Bears, you look at all those guys, 85 Bears, you guys, 84, 85, you guys had good tight ends over there. So speaking of which, I want to pause really quick. One of your friends, teammates recently, he was just, his fight's over. He fought as long as he could. He was there for, Macy, his daughter, Misty, all his friends, family. I mean, he fought harder than I've ever seen anybody. I mean, really with ALS and everything that was up against him. I can't believe it, man. Talk about the will to live, the will to fight. I mean, no one better. One of his, friends and teammates talk about him and what he means to you, and what this closing chapter was when you heard the news, and a little bit whatever you'd like to say right now. I know bringing you on the show, it's got to be, something along with the draft. You were telling me you and the wife watched the draft last night, so that's something to take your mind off of and all that, and just, being on the show. But I'd like to just have a little word with you about Steve Mongo McMichael.
I'm you have on the screen right now, Brandon. I know both those guys, training camp, but I knew Steve. Steve was just one row behind me in all those meetings in Chicago with Buddy, getting our game plans and things like that. He was a guy that never ever turned it off. He was always, you could hand him a helmet and he'd say, "Okay, let's go." He didn't even have to have shoulder pads on. It didn't matter, because I've seen him play with some incredible injuries, facial lacerations and, dislocated shoulders. It didn't matter. He had incredible mindset that he would lock out anything that was a distraction to him playing football. And, I always said this, if you were going down a dark, deep alley in any metropolitan area you want to talk about, you wanted Steve McMichael next to you. And because you know what? He would give his life, literally, to protect his family, his teammates. And I never have met anybody like him. He was his personality inside, and he did so many things. He was in a group. He was singer, and he played an instrument, and he wrestled, professionally. And I know he played other sports too, in addition to football. But it just goes to show you the versatility of him as an athlete and a person. And when you play different sports, Brandon, it brings out different personality traits in you. You are talking and conversing with people that would have nothing to do with football, but now you're hearing a whole new dimension of friendship and what people's hobbies were and things like that. And Steve, just whatever the challenge was, he said, "Man, count me in. I want to be first in line." And it's a shame that he was stricken with this disease, but I think he's at peace now. He had time to just think about his life, which was awesome, and and had a great wife and great family, and glad I had a chance to play with him.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you had a chance to play with him also. Part of the reason why we met, I do have a video I'd like to play. It's actually like a slideshow of pictures that brought people like you and I together, and other of his friends and teammates and whatnot during this this trip. The last couple years has just been, it's been something else. So let's go ahead and watch that really quick. Thanks again for giving us your thoughts and whatnot in your times.
Yeah, it was thankfulness, really thankfulness.
I did have some music behind this, but actually they made me turn it off because it was special. There's me and my daughter right there up at Bridges Scoreboard. We did a lot of benefits up there for him. There's Mike Singletary, myself, and Misty up at the tailgate. That's the old Mongo's place. That's Waddle, Tom Waddle, Bruce Heron, Chris Draft, some of our friends, my son, Terrence, the whole crew, Bobby Janier, my son, and all his decked out Mongo stuff. So lots of pictures. There's some stuff coming up from Canton, Ohio also. I could only get so much in, Doug. I got so many pictures. And my son kept praying. He didn't understand. He didn't get it. He didn't understand. And he's like, I'll keep praying till he gets better. And it's just unfortunate. This is one of those things, where yeah. So just wanted to share that with everybody. Some of my buddies in Canton, Ohio there, and the enshrinement.
Yeah, there's certain players there's certain players in the league you really don't. And Steve was one of those guys.
Yeah,
because you knew he never took a play off. He top of his game every play. He had stats that were sufficient enough to get him into the Hall of Fame. That's all you need to know. I mean, it wasn't just like we're having some sort of a consideration party for him because of his illness. No, he was one heck of a player. And, it's not always about piling up stats. Sometimes you can come on the field and you can bring an attitude with you that just permeates the entire team. And when you do something dramatic or spectacular, I'm not saying I ever did anything spectacular. I ran into people hard, made a lot of noise. But you know what? It turns other guys on. It's like, man, I need to do that. How did that feel, Doug? Did that feel good? Of course, I always said, yeah, that was great. I want to do it again next play. And but Steve would carry on conversations like that in the huddle during the game, and he was calling that. You know what? It's not a crime to get knocked down. It's a crime to stay down. And he would challenge players in that huddle. Where were you? I saw you get knocked down. Why didn't you get back up? I mean, the play is. I was always taught at Ohio State, you play till you hear the whistle. And sometimes the official swallows the whistle by error, and there's no whistle. So you just keep going. And you're running literally going, geez, the whistle, I should be hearing the whistle about now. You don't hear the whistle. That's the way it was back then. And and it was so much fun. I mean, I was enjoying myself. So was Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. Rest in peace. So here's we want to shift back over really quick to Loveland, then we'll talk about day 2 where we need a running back, a left tackle, an edge, safety. If you were Ryan Poles, where would you be at? But I want to say one more thing about Loveland really quick. There's a man who you are familiar with, and Nick Saban. Nick Saban, here's his quote about Colston Loveland. Another one of the recruits that we lost. He beat us in the playoffs. This guy is a fantastic athlete. He's the best receiver of all tight ends in the draft, in his opinion. Does his opinion weigh on you at all? Do you take Nick Saban's opinion when you're looking at recruits and guys coming into the draft?
I would say without a doubt, yes. I know Nick Saban. He's not going to tell you something that's a lie, especially about football. You don't get to be successful as he has with going around and misdirecting, and misleading people. No way.
What does he get out of it? He doesn't get anything out of this if he lies for the Bears. Yeah.
Nothing. No, nothing. That is one of the most cherished recommendations that you could get from Nick Saban. He's obviously been a winner for many years, and obviously I know he's changed location now. But players wanted to go play for him, even as stern as he was. And but here's the ultimate thing: you don't even mind running all this time, physical practices, tough. When the end of the game, the end of the day, you win the game. You will do anything to be on a team like that. I've been on teams that lost a lot, and I would much rather work hard, sacrifice, and be on a team that's winning. And I will do that at any cost. In fact, I would rather sit on the bench and watch my winning team than play on a terrible team and lose game after game after game. It's frustration. And I think you and I can say we've had a lot of frustration.
Oh God.
In the last few
Oh
years.
God, brother. Yeah. So here's the deal. I want to shed a little light and have a little fun with this. Okay. This is something that I posted up earlier today. Cole Kmet and Colston together, the two tight ends. That's a stepbrothers picture in case you're, yeah, but anyways, it's going to be interesting to see those two guys line up. I'm sure it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Ben Johnson's going to have a lot of fun with these two guys. So, all right. So let's shift over to Chicago's biggest day two needs. Their running back.
Let me just say something.
Yeah.
Interject one thing. Having another person that's playing the same position you are, it's not competition. It's a great thing. I loved it. I loved playing with Gary Fensick.
Yeah.
You know what? He challenged me. I challenged him.
Yeah.
And every play, we were back that huddle, congratulating and encouraging each other. I didn't need coaches to do it to me. I had other players. And that safety next to me was so valuable. I valued his opinion over everybody else in the organization when it came to football. So that's why I think, this is like kryptonite coming together. It's going to be awesome. They're going to be better together than they were as individuals.
Yeah. Yeah. Like peanut butter and jelly, like beer and peanuts.
Yep.
like tea and egg.
I know the defense needed, some draft choices and things like that, Brandon. But the bottom line is, hey, listen, it's still young. We're still got players to draft. And here's the other thing: you don't think these coaches on the staff right now, they have already been going around the league figuring out who they could get from another team, maybe a free agent, maybe a trade, whatever. I promise you. I see some of the listings here from fans that are calling in. What about the defense? What about this and that? And that? I promise you, these guys just didn't wake up yesterday and say, "Oh, we're in football." No, they've been there, done it. And I know a couple of the coaches. I love their attitude. Yeah. They're as frustrated with the team as I was watching last year. And I guarantee you, something is going to change for the better.
No, I get it. I agree. And I think something is going to do. And listen, you are not in Ben Johnson. He knew when you listen and you go look at the Chicago Bears website and, Ryan Poles calls him, talk about, and I'm going to use Mongo's word, straight jubilation. This kid was ecstatic. This kid was fired up. This guy was pumped, man. He was excited, and so was Ben Johnson. And he goes, I know what we got. We're cooking with grease now. And he knew what he was getting as a first-time head coach. This is his first pick in the history of ever. This is what starts him off in the trajectory of whatever happens next. So let's get excited about not only the kid, but Ben Johnson, the Ryan Poles, and your Chicago Bears. I'm excited about it, man. I'm pumped up. I'm fired up, man. I'm glad I'm having you in the building. It's always good to talk Chicago Bears with you, brother. I just wish you lived a little bit closer, man. I wish you lived a little bit closer. Maybe one day we'll take care of that when I get old enough to go into the nice warm parts and retire, next to you, brother. I'll be like, you got a little flower there, and then your wife will be like, Brandon came over for flour. 2 hours later, you guys are still podcasting and chopping it up, talking Bears. What's going on here? No, but
and really,
seriously, man.
The more there is to talk about, I agree with 100%. Brandon, think about this: the '85 Bears. What was the magic of that team? Okay, there were some players. Mike Singletary was awesome. Walter Payton, blah blah. How about the coach? How about Mike Ditka? He came in and changed everything. The whole mentality. We became better players because we cared about each other. We were not, making mental errors. And, and if you did something wrong, you were not reprimanded. It was pointed out, criticized. Listen, we need more effort. When Mike got into that meeting for the first time in front of our team and basically said half the guys in here aren't going to be here in a couple years, and this team is going to the Super Bowl, there was actually laughter and sniding back in the back of the room. I go, that guy, you got to have something to say that in front of a National Football League team. And Mike Ditka had it. And, you can criticize him for all he wants later on and things like that. Half his team left. That's the other thing we're confronted with now, too. You got to be careful not to build too good of a team, because you might wake up the day after the season is over and half your team is somewhere else, and it's happening in college every year.
Yeah.
You're really, really bad or really, really good. And then you wake up the next day and your team is gone. They've all left.
Right.
They've got better jobs or worse jobs. And
got to get younger. You can't, everybody can't be seasoned and in their 30s or late 20s, and not everybody can be 22 years old, right, coming right out of the draft. You need a good mix up and mash up of everybody. Everybody in the building needs to carry that wagon, man. Listen, Chicago's biggest day two needs are running back, left tackle, edge, and safety. If you were Ryan Poles, which need jumps to you at the front of the board? Where would you pick? What position do you feel is the most needed right now?
Let me just. I would like to summarize you. I would like to get. And that's not to criticize anybody that's there. I just think sometimes with Mike Ditka, but a lot of this is going to come from the coach. These players that you watched the last couple of years, they're going to get better. You're going to say, "Well, I've never seen that player do that." You know why? It was somebody that was directing him and telling him what to not do or to do. And when you put it on a line, you say, if you don't do what I tell you right now, you probably won't be here much longer. And that may mean nothing now. It meant a lot back when I was playing. But, I truly believe, because of the track record of this organization, this coaching staff, the philosophy that they have, I think the fans are going to be happy with what they see. Now, it won't happen in one game or, 5 games. But you know what? You'll know when you'll see something in a game and going, oh my gosh, this is so different than what it was before.
Right.
And then you're going to know, what? We're either quickly going there, or you can't get there in 1 year, but you can certainly do incredible improvement. And there's guys like, they just need a little bit of encouraging, maybe that don't get a chance or whatever, that are on this team or that are around the league. And don't think that other players, that want to be with a winner based on, what they've done in Detroit. I just think that, there's going to be a need, not a need, but, there's going to be players they're going to want to go play on the Chicago Bears. And you only need 1 or 2 of them, because that just puts you over the top. I mean, look at all these games, how close they are down to the wire. Somebody makes a great catch, a great throw, a tackle, whatever. I'm telling you, it's no more difficult than that. But you got to get the right people. It's that thing that you got to get the right people on the bus.
Yeah, you got to get everybody on the bus.
You got the wrong people on the bus.
Mm-hmm. Or
you got the wrong people on the bus. You know it.
Or you got the wrong people in the boat, and not all of them are rowing. And you look back, you're like, why are we going so slow? Earn your keep, man. And don't start poking holes in the boat, because now we're taking in water and I'm about to throw you off and make this boat a lot lighter, damn it. And that sounds like something Mongo would say. Call somebody out, and be like, let's go, like you're talking about in one of those, one of those stories earlier, like call people out. It's okay in this day and age to call people out when they're not earning their keep. Listen, you're all on the same team. You're all working for the same goal. You all want to win. Yeah.
That's it. You're right. And you know what? In every play, this play is going to be on the screen. It's going to be showed to everybody on defense in that room. It's not a crime to get knocked down.
I got a
but you know what?
Reel.
Get off as fast as possible and get back in that play and hit somebody and act like, hey,
yes,
like I want to be here. I want to be here.
Yeah.
You're not over there talking to the fans and the ball's getting snapped. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That would have been a ticket out of town so fast.
Yep. Speaking of hard hits, I got to show it. Every time you come on, we get excited. We get pumped up. Grab your popcorn. Let's watch some hard hits by Mr. Doug Plank. It's a quick one, but it's fun and it's action-packed. So you might change what you've got to say right now on your next draft pick for day 2. You might jump right out and say, I want to go get a safety and put a jersey 46 on him and see if he lives up to that number, or maybe a 45 or 47 or something. We might not want to mess with 46. Maybe you grow into it once you prove that you can actually wear that jersey. But let's watch this jersey. Let's watch number 46. Oh my.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Love it. Love it. Ladies and gentlemen, get your hands together. Doug Plank and the hard hits, baby. Hard hits. Yeah. Love those virtual claps. You know, everybody at their house is clapping right now. Come on, Doug. You know that, right? So we're going to get to this. There's going to be in the near future day and age where we're going to be able to see people clap their hands on the other side. So Elon Musk, you can get us to the damn moon. You can strap on a bunch of AAA batteries and we can drive all the way across the United States, but we can't see people on the other side clap for Mr. Doug Plank. Come on, get it together, sir. So yeah, man. Thanks, Doug. Thanks for we could watch those videos forever, bro. What you did years ago in your decade of dominance is still to this day. We're watching, the fruits of your labor. Thank you, sir.
You know what? It was all because I was with the Bears. I mean, seriously. I loved watching them as a young man growing up. It was just so much fun. Dick Buss, Gale Sayers. Nothing like it, and had to have met both of them when I was in Chicago. It was just a dream come true.
I love Squeegee. Now, Squeegee was the guy that had the yapping dog, and he kept hitting this wall to make him stop.
So it was
Squeegee's saying in the chat right now, damn, I got to readjust my spine every time I see that. The guy's hilarious. I mean, but please don't bring your dog on next time, Squeegee. But it was freaking, yeah, that's a hilarious take, man. Yap. Just in case you missed Squeegee, I'm going to do it for you, Doug. Yap. All right. Anyways, so let's get back to this. So you said you want to get a safety day 2. Is that what you're looking at, Doug? Or you want a safety at day 2, an edge, a left tackle, a running back? What would you say first at 39 and then 41? It's nice that we got 2 draft picks right by each other and that we actually didn't use one to move up yesterday, because now we still got 2 spots.
I would rather than me just watching some of the games, not all the games last year. I would defer to the existing coaching staff because they are much more qualified. Although I was a coach for 10 years, with the Falcons and the Jets and Ohio State, I'm not going to try to pretend that I know everything. I don't know everything. And, I'm impacted by personalities just like you are, Brandon. You see a player you like, enjoy, he's having fun out there. Man, I'm a big fan, but I think that they know their existing players and they know what they need to replace. And I trust and have confidence in that coaching staff. I believe in them. I know some of them that I've met in the past, and I trust them as a coach because what they say and what they do is the same. They don't say one thing and do another thing. And I truly believe their heart and mind is in trying to get this Chicago Bear team back in the winning column and start back to respect around the league and, with the right plan, the right coaches, and the right organization.
It's crazy. There's a couple guys that I have, and one of them is the real Annie Up. He just came in. I hope he had a situation last night. He couldn't come on because he had an unfortunate situation. I won't speak on it, but I know he'd want to be here today. But this guy is as real as they come. He's so fun to hang out with and talk Bears football about. But it seems like every time we watch a highlight reel or we listen to a couple and, we read some stuff and we get all excited and, meatballs and, homers on certain things, we change who we want day to day, minute to minute. It just depends on which way the wind blows with everything going on. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad that, like you said, the powers that be are the ones that are making this decision because you never really know exactly which way it could go. And like you said, we're not in those meetings. You said this earlier, Doug. We're not in those meetings every day. We're not looking at everything with the fine-tooth comb. We don't know the injuries. We don't know the situations. We don't know if someone's having a baby or whatever. Anything that's going on, they know everything under that house, man. It's their job, man. You look at Ben Johnson, he's wore out. He's got bags under his eyes. That means he's doing his job, people. He's not going out and getting Botoxes and pedicures and butt lifts and all this kind of stuff. He's out there, leading the team, across the finish line, So, I'm excited about the guy. I think it's great, man. So let's get into it really quick. Let's talk about the day two needs and top targets. Here's the naked truth on our day two needs. Okay. We've got in the building, we've got DeAndre Swift at running back. His averages are under 3.5 yards per carry in 24. We need a home run hitter. When you speak and you talk to Doug and he speaks about a guy like Walter Payton, man, Walter Payton. I'm not saying Walter Payton's in this draft, but the fact that he goes to him so early and often, and he was a defensive, juggernaut. He was a safety, a hard-hitting missile, he looks at a guy like Walter Payton and he constantly brings him up. That's the impact of a true good running back and what it means to have a guy in the building like that. I don't think we have that in DeAndre Swift. We need to go get a home run hitter running back in the backfield. Secondly, our left tackle is less desired right now. Okay, guys, our left tackle, the last time we saw him on the field, he was getting carted off. He's still not 100% healthy yet. You can't go into the season with a guy on a cart. It doesn't work, man. High ankle sprain, pending free agency. Listen, edge rusher, Montez Sweat. He needs a speed partner to generate consistent pressure. And safety, Jaquan Brisker, concussion history, makes depth a must. Not saying that we need to go out and get a day one starter. Listen, while I have you in the building, Doug, let's pause for that really quick. Let's talk about the concussion in Jaquan Brisker and having 3 concussions. If he says that he's okay, if the experts say that he's okay, after 3 concussions, are you saying it's time to hang up his cleats, or do you think that he's still got some football left in him?
I would say rather than trying to be premature, I'm not a doctor. So my evaluation is only just observation. And I managed to
just
break
opinion.
several helmets and get concussions, things like that. But I wasn't really prepared to make a reading on my remaining brain cells. And I think, leave that up to the doctors. But, at the same time, we've seen over the last couple of years, the hardest hit that I was ever remember, Brandon, was when I hit the ground.
Yeah.
It wasn't another player. It was the ground. And so there's so many different angles into this rather than just trying to, can this player go back out there and play after 1 or 2 or 3 concussions?
Yeah.
I think we're certainly moving in the safety mode to more safer for players. Like I said, it used to be, you were handed smelling salts. If you felt like you had a concussion, you had smelling salts, and you had how many fingers does the doctor have up? Well, he always came into the room like this, 1 finger. That was the go-to call, 1 finger, and then you were back in the game. And so I'm not saying they should take it lightly. They shouldn't. Their emphasis on practice, looking at the different helmets, things like that. And you know what? It is a huge consideration now when you're paying players a lot of money that they maybe got hurt or they've been hurt in the past and they're more vulnerable to having the same injury. So, that's really a tough call because once again, we're just journeymen. We can't make evaluations on somebody's physical stature, how maybe another concussion, that might be it for them, in terms of feelings and they're all their other things. You can't just get 5 minutes better after a concussion. You're back out there playing. It takes a while just for your body to settle down and just start realizing where you are. I mean, every time I got knocked out, the first thing I opened my eyes, sometimes I'd be in the emergency room at the hospital. Sometimes I'm looking at the stars up there, not stars, but the sky, and wondering where I am. Where am I? What am I doing? And that's enough to scare somebody, that hasn't had it happen to them very often. And so I guess I would always encourage people to take the safety route at possible. And it's still a very, very tough physical football game. But, I think putting rules and things in place with equipment and things like that to try to cut down on injuries is really a must.
You know what? You're 100% right. And that's what we needed to hear. We needed to hear the God's honest truth from both sides of where you came from, where it's evolved. And I would say this: can you recall how many you've had? Have they told you how many, or kept track of how many concussions you've had, Doug? Including, like, obviously, like, in the middle of your play, like your hardest play, your toughest play.
I'll be honest with you. I had a few games in the National Football League. I was still playing, but I didn't know who we were playing or where we were playing. But it didn't matter. When you do something of repetitive nature, like learn plays, everything else can be blank. You don't even know who your mother's name is. Yeah, but you know what the defense is. You know who you're playing against. I mean, it sounds crazy to say that, but that's the one thing that gets pounded into you over and over and over again, that you can literally go out there and still play football. Yeah. And you didn't know where you were, but that didn't matter because, there were a couple times I got dazed and I'm walking around and I had to look down at my jersey and see what color it was and then go walk to the huddle with those guys that had that jersey on.
Wow.
And you know what? Here's the other thing, and I'll tell people this, and players will know what I'm talking about. You never want to say you're injured and you have to be replaced and you have to go off the field, go on the sideline, and then another person comes back in and takes your place. That's what movies are made of. The guy that never got a chance to play, that was me. I was always the next man up at Ohio State. I'm not saying I was hoping for injuries, but I was glad to get in the game. That meant somebody had to get hurt at defensive back. And so that's what I did at Ohio State. And so when you're a starter and you're going to have to go and say, hey, I'm hurt, I don't think I can play, or I don't know where we are or what the plays are, you do everything you can to fight that. And that's where the smelling salts came in and all the other sort of things, to just wake yourself up and, do it yourself, because you never wanted to go to that trainer or coach and say, hey, listen, I just had another concussion. Didn't want to do that. And so I still think some of that goes on still, maybe to a lesser degree than it was before. But, there's a lot of stories. One guy, Tom Brady, that's the perfect injury story. Guy came in, unbelievable career, all the greatest of all time. You didn't want that guy. You didn't want Tom Brady behind you because, that might be the last time you'd see the field.
Well, yeah. And, to your point, like you said, you felt like you were playing with a chip on your shoulder, undersized, and you didn't have the privilege of, being a top draft pick or somebody that was highly coveted. You had to play extra hard. So it wasn't like you could take the time out to recover. You forced yourself back out there because you didn't want your spot to be taken and you always wanted to prove yourself. So that's a unique situation all in of itself. And that's where the will, we're going to be able to see this with Brisker. But like I said, getting back on track, I do think that depth is an important factor there. I don't think it's a starter right now. So while it is important to go get, it might not be priority. Now, I will say this. I think a guy in the position, Caleb Johnson, running back from Iowa, elusive zone scheme, back with all conference tape, man. This guy, he can freaking do it. Quinshon Judkins, running back, Ohio State, power runner with receiving chops, ESPN high grade. Now you go look at the edge. Donovan Irukba from Boston College, 34-inch arms, long arms, 4.55 speed, 40-yard dash, smooth first step. There's a guy over there. Landon Jackson, another edge, athletic freak, fits 3-4 or 4-3 scheme. And then you got Mike Green from Marshall. Explosive, high motor, day 2 starter potential. I did see in the chat earlier, Doug, somebody wanted to ask you a question about Mike Green from Marshall. You did speak a little bit, not so much on Mike Green, but going out and taking chances from kids from small colleges and what that means. Can you expound a little bit on that and why you might want to stay clear of something like that if you want to make sure that you go out and get, especially at edge, a guy that comps Sweat, a guy that's comp the other side is Sweat to get that pressure in there on the quarterbacks, Can you hear me, Doug?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I lost your signal, but no, I know what you're talking about. I think that it's just another consideration anymore because I think the players are bigger, faster, collisions are more greater. It's easier to get knocked out of a game. I think we saw that the last couple of years where players accidentally just got knocked off their feet and fell down and got a concussion. And didn't know where they were. They had to go to the hospital, resuscitate them, and all that sort of thing. It just goes to show you how important it is for medical attention in sports, especially football. Even without two players running directly into each other, like I said before, the hardest hit I ever had in a football game was the ground. Sometimes I just got knocked off my feet. Yeah. Somebody would hit me from the blind side. I never saw them coming, and I went flying. And I landed on my head first, and I actually bounced a little bit, and it just probably compressed my spinal column. And I got up off the ground. I didn't know where I was, who I was. It gradually just went away. Yeah. It's just, but for that second, that minute, you're looking around thinking, where am I?
Yep.
And it's funny to talk about it, but I know it's not so much funny to experience it.
So getting back to the safety, you got Nick Amwari, and this guy is a ball hawk, man. He's got instincts. He's a tackling machine. He's tall. Will Johnson is still available from Michigan. Press man corner with competitive toughness. I believe his knee is an issue, and that's why he's falling back so far. But somebody that potentially you would be willing to go look at. Now, here's a guy from Missouri. Luther Burden III, elite after the catch ability, could play Z receiver day one. I also look for him to play wide receiver and slot. I mean, there's a lot of good guys that we could go out and get. So, all right, Doug, let's fire up that mock draft simulator that everybody likes to do, and we can fire up the mock draft simulator. We could play GM, assistant GM, and get the guys at home involved, and we can kind of do this by we have a big war room where everybody gets together and we make the picks. Okay. So give me a second. I'm going to let you expound on positions and what you would like to see in the rest of the draft while I fire up this mock draft simulator. So give me a second, brother.
Of course. You're in a draft room, there's any right or wrong answers, or because, even players, sometimes they're so supported in high school and in college. Their parents come to the game all the time, and there's the band and all that kind of stuff. When you go to the National Football League, that's a cold environment. You're in there, you're trying to compete with other guys and take their jobs away in training camp. So no one's in there giving you hugs. Oh, great. We're so glad we drafted you. No, you never, ever get that. And it's hostile. It's a hostile environment. And unless you've been around a hostile environment, most players that went to smaller colleges, everything was kumbaya. Give me a hug. Yes, everything's wonderful and the band's here and all that. You go to the NFL, like I said, it's a different scenario. And so when you're playing in college against, once again, smaller schools, not in terms of enrollment, but I'm talking about spending on football teams, their rankings on a year-to-year basis. There's nothing wrong. To me, I'm glad I went and played at Ohio State because that competition prepared me for the NFL.
Right.
And I'm not just saying there. The same thing is true at Michigan. And now it's Indiana. And now it's a whole bunch of other teams. Obviously, It's always been Alabama. And it's been the Southeast Conference. And there was the Pac-10 or 12 or whatever you want to call it. All these schools, Nebraska introduced weightlifting into football. When you looked at their team, oh my gosh, it looked like they just came out of the weight room. Guys were bench pressing 400 pounds. And you know what? When they got on the team, on the field, they just kicked butt. They were stronger. They were bigger. They were more durable. And when you're in great shape and you have muscles, you heal faster. And when you run at people full speed, you have confidence. You know what? I've got a thicker neck than that guy. I've got more muscles. I got more biceps, triceps. And you know what? Most importantly, in my mind, I have the willingness to go ahead and just crash through somebody that you just don't get that kind of coaching. I believe that competitive, against Michigan, Ohio State, listen, man, it was everybody for himself. You were out there, and obviously it's the most important game of the year, but you lived with either the winning or the losing for all the remaining months. And you wanted to make sure that you walked off that field. I don't care if it was winning by 1 point. You wanted to beat Michigan.
I gotcha. And that says a lot coming from a guy that went to Ohio State. So let's go ahead and get into this. Let's fire this up. Obviously, we are going to take Loveland at 10 because that's what we did this year. And then we're going to go from there and see who we're going to pick after. Here we go. And I love the question earlier. That was a great question. And we'll get into that in a second. I'm not ignoring you, sir. We will get into that question about Will. I'm very interested in him. Colston Loveland is actually a suggestion right now, and his pick is at 15. So we're picking him obviously at 10. So here we go. All right. We now have Colston Loveland on the Chicago Bears, and that graded out as an A. So that was an A pick. So there we go. Now we are now at the point of our draft where we will be at tonight. And for the most part, there will be some guys that you see on here that are already picked up. So we'll stay clear of them and we'll just go after the guys that are available, you know. Right now, I see Luther Burden, he's available. Trayvon Henderson, he's available. Nick Scorton, he's available. All these guys right now, they're available on the big board. So where would you like to see us pick up at, Doug, as far as these goes? Is there anybody in particular that interests you, Doug?
You know what? The last couple years or last 12 years, I was doing broadcasting for the National Football League on national radio. So many times I was traveling on Saturdays and never really saw these players play.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing to look at a few highlights. You know,
Sure.
oh, geez, didn't he hit hard or whatever? Yeah, but what about the other players? The other plays? You know, when I coach, it's about how you run on the field, how you run off the field. What plays do you make? You know, how are you looked by your teammates? So I really feel like, I mean, I recognize some of these names because they're on bigger schools, you know, they were on television, things like that. You know, like I said, Walter Payton was my first roommate in training camp in Chicago Bears. He went to Jackson State, and he asked me why, you know, Archie Griffin was so good winning the Heisman. I said, because he showed up every game. And I said, I'll be honest, Walter, I didn't even know who you were till I met you right now. And you're our first round draft pick. Yeah. And he just kind of laughed. But, you know, it's reality. You know, smaller schools, ones that are maybe in conferences that aren't on national television all the time, you know, it's not fair because you're asking the trade. Look at these guys and say, how well are they going to play against top competition? Right. And frankly, some guys can do it and some can't.
Absolutely. And, you know, at the end of the day, I agree with you wholeheartedly. The good news is this is a mock draft simulator, and it don't mean diddly squat. It's just having a good old time, you know, guessing, saying who I would like, who would Doug like if you were a coach right now and you had these, you know, positional needs. Let's just talk position. What position do you think we need to look at? Okay, running back is a need. Offensive line is a need. Defensive line is a need. Safety is a need. What would you like to look at first? And then we'll ask the chat.
Yeah, I would say, having been a Chicago Bear player over the years, watching the Chicago Bears, Dick Butkus, since I was 9 years old, I think it's all about defense. And I say the more guys you can get on that line, I think the 85 Bears, you know, that was the heartbeat of that team, that pass rush they had. And you know, I've never looked so good as when I had a great pass rush. You know why? They're not holding the quarterback's not holding the ball back in the pocket. He's throwing it fast, and he don't care where it's at because you know why? He doesn't want to get hit. He doesn't want four guys pound on top of him. And so I would say I would head first for defensive pass rush.
Okay, so we're looking at Tyleik Williams from Ohio State. I know you know who he is because he's from Ohio State. And then you got the defensive lineman from Toledo. Now, if we look at edge, we got Nick Scorton and Landon Jackson at edge. And then we got JT from Ohio State, too. Now, I know you're a alum from Ohio State, and you probably would like all the guys from Ohio State to be a Chicago Bear, but we can't do that, Doug. We can't do that, okay? So I know you wouldn't want that either. So what do you guys think out there in chat land? Let's talk about it. Let's be about it. You guys want to get a defensive lineman first? You want to go? I agree with Doug. Let's go defense, man. We're Chicago Bear fans. We love Chicago. Let's see what happens. Is anyone out there in the chat? Does any of these guys jump out at you? What interests you guys? We're going to go ahead and give you the first crack we're going to make it up to you. We're going to make it up to you because we feel like you guys got a bad bill of sales or something, you know, with this. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. In all reality, This is all just for fun, okay? So let's keep it light. Let's keep it simple.
Yeah.
What do you guys think out there? Anybody come to mind that you guys are interested in that you guys see on the big board here with myself and Mr. Plank?
My point is, Brandon, is that linemen make other players look good.
Yeah.
Offensive linemen make quarterbacks and running backs look good.
Right.
On defense, a pass rush, there was never an all-pro safety or cornerback out there that had a terrible defensive line. It just didn't happen. You know, you absolutely need that. Like the first year I was with the Bears, I led the team in tackles as a free safety. How does that happen? It means there's a lot of holes in that front line. And so, you know, as it went on and the Bears are going to the Super Bowl and, you know, they crushed teams. You know, they were sacking guys and tackles for a loss. You know, the safeties and most of the cornerbacks, they're just sitting back there going, I love this show. This is so much fun to watch because all I need to do is backpedal a couple steps and then watch the quarterback get hit.
Absolutely. It makes it a whole lot easier. And as far as I can remember, every Niner team that I saw win, every Cowboy team that I see beat up against the Buffalo Bills, the 85 Bears, the Steelers. You look at all these teams, the Patriots, the what do you call it? The Buccaneers, the Saints, they all had Vikings. They all had really good defense when they went out and won these Super Bowls. So, so I agree. I think we need to go out and look. One guy has already voted twice. He wants to go get the edge out of Ohio State. Nobody else has spoke up yet. So we might go ahead and go out and get that guy. Mike Green is not available, Phil. He's gone. He's gone. He's not here. He's already been taken. So some of this stuff ain't going to add up because he's still available in real life. But this is make believe. So, Nick Scorton, that somebody's up. So we got one Nick Scorton and we've got one, JT from Ohio State. I'm with the Nick Scorton type. I do like that. I think, Nick Scorton at edge would be good. Wish we had 4 picks, Romy says, even though she knows that we have 3. I tell you what, I'm right on there with. I also like Landon Jackson. I'm not mad. Alex said, "Let's go." What's up, Alex? How you doing, man? Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you coming in. Yeah. All right. So, you know, he's looking at JTT. So we've got 2 JTTs. All right, we're going to go get JT. There we go. We got him. He's on board. So we got an edge. That's our second pick in the draft. Now we're already at 41. What position do we need next? What position strikes out at us? I would say for me, it's running back. And I like, by the way, we got a B+ picking up JT. The edge from Ohio State. So we got Loveland at an A, tight end Michigan, and then we got an edge Ohio State. So far, I see a trend. We're getting Big Ten teams, players, and big time names. So staying with that, I like Caleb Johnson, the running back from Iowa. Is everybody on board with getting a running back, or do you think we should go another position? What do you guys think? What about you, Doug? Where are you at?
Well, I think if you're going to get a running back, you better make sure he's versatile, that he can do more things than just run the football and block. He can catch. Right. You know, he's fast. You know, anymore right now, I just watch college. I watched a lot of college last year, obviously, because I wasn't working that day. But my point is, you could just see how much faster the running backs were. They could run away from linebackers, and they broke through that line. And, you know, that was a distinguishing factor, I think. You know, even going back to college, you know, that game between Notre Dame and Ohio State, those running backs got through that line of scrimmage and they could outrun everybody. that never really happened when I was playing.
Right.
DBs would just run those guys down, but they're faster and quicker now. Change the
So-
direction. It's another thing. It's just amazing. I can't understand how some of these players can just run full speed, plant a foot, go left, go right. That was like unheard of. And so athleticism has definitely come into the sport of football, and it plays a part in really literally every position. We talked about the quarterback. There's no such thing as a pocket quarterback anymore. You have to be able to scramble, stay alive, keep the play alive.
Yeah.
They said that every coverage breaks down after 3.5 seconds. Well, that's what they always told us when I was playing as a safety. That meant that if you could get a guy back in the pocket that could keep the game alive, like Mahomes or something like that, you're going to get open. The coverage breaks down, and all of a sudden now it's playground time. You're just running around trying to guard anybody that's next to you, but there's no concerted effort in terms of a game plan or a coverage. And so having a quarterback that can keep a play alive, that's why I think speed and agility now has to be the overriding factor when you talk about receivers, defensive backs, running backs, and even linebackers.
Now there is another guy that popped up on our top board, and that's Xavier Watts, the safety from Notre Dame. He is head over heels above everybody else in this draft as far as safety. And I wouldn't be mad at picking up a safety at 51. I think we can still go get good quality offensive linemen later on and running backs. This draft class is deep in running back. I think this might be where we strike and go back-to-back defense and then follow it up with offense at 72. But at 41, I wouldn't be mad at going out and getting a safety. But I do want to pause for the cause and look and see who is available right now at defensive tackle. I know that is a position of need. You got TJ Sanders, defensive tackle from South Carolina, and Alfred Collins from Texas, and Shamar Turner at 75. So not really excited about all that, but I want to know in the chat what you guys are thinking. Tell me what you guys are thinking. You guys are saying left tackle. One guy says we need a left tackle. The others are saying that we need to go ahead and take running backs. And they're saying either go get the running back Henderson from Ohio State or go get Caleb from Iowa. Both are good selections. Let's go ahead and bring it to a vote. I'm good with either or. I think those are two really good candidates to be the carrier of the ball for the Chicago Bears. So far it looks like Judkins, Henderson, and Caleb. Let's see here. Do we have another? Honestly, best available. Let's look at that. That'd be Caleb. After that, it goes to Scadaboo at 90. Now, I wouldn't be mad at Scadaboo at 72 if we really need to go out and get a guy. Lance Briggs is big on Scadaboo. He loves him some Scadaboo from Arizona State. And the guy spends plenty of time in Arizona. I know he knows his Arizona football. So I trust his judgment on that. I'm good with that. I'm totally good with Scadaboo at 90 and going out and getting another position that we desperately need. We do have an offensive lineman available in Jonas Savai and TJ Sanders, defensive lineman, South Carolina. Those are some guys that are interesting right now. I'm looking at for sure.
If you take a really good look at most of the offenses in college football, especially, They're not necessarily the old line up 3 yards in a cloud of dust. We're going to just grind. No, the running takes place usually after maybe nobody was open, and maybe there was a little dump pass to a running back that circled outside the backfield. So the running game is not like the running game of days of old. You can be very quick and lighter. You don't have to be Earl Campbell. You don't have to be running over all the linebackers. You can be a guy that's 200, 210 pounds, quick, fast. And I think we saw that especially in college this last year, guys that could block, but then they could just sneak out of the backfield, catch a little 5-yard pass or even one out in the flat, and then go run with it. They had running skills. They were fast. They were quick. Yeah. So, the days of football, you only having one job, those are long gone.
Yeah.
Safeties now are linebackers. Linebackers can't go be safeties, because it just doesn't work that way. But, the one thing that I loved about the 46 defense when Buddy Ryan showed up with that one day, man, I was involved in every single play at the linebacker position. And I like to tackle people. And it was so much fun, just changing up, what it looked like. And, we used to have nobody. Most times I wasn't even blocked because we devised a, 5 to 6 man line, and all the guys were covered. So nobody ever came to me. And it was just so much fun because I could run full speed at the quarterback, the running backs, the receiver, whatever I wanted to do. My point is, the game has changed over the last few years, and rules are always changing every single year. And I think some of these athletes now that are fast, they're kind of like hybrid. They can maybe almost even play defense. They're strong. They're usually around 200, 205 pounds, quick, fast. They can come out of the backfield. I always liked knowing what a guy was going to do before the game ever started. This guy was going to be a receiver. That guy was going to be a runner. Now, all of a sudden, these guys, they could be like a receiver in the backfield. And all of a sudden, he comes out, he catches the ball. Man, trying to catch and tackle those guys in the open area, somebody that's an athlete, that's fast, can accelerate, it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, I hear that for sure. I think the best player available right now would be Zabel, interior offensive line. Yes. We know that he's going to go and play either center or guard. I'm okay with that right now. I think we've got now. I do want depth, but here, I think we need a starter. I like Trevion Henderson from Ohio State here at 37. And here's why, because we're at 41, so there's value there. He's a guy that can do a lot of things good. So let's go ahead and pick him up at 41 and see where we're at when we go to 72. So we got Michigan player tight end. We've got edge Ohio State and running back from Ohio State. Man, it looks like we are in love with the Big Ten over here, man. Oh, geez. And we are. So at 72, we can go pick up an interior offensive lineman, tackle, and we can go pick up. Let's go look at tackle. Let's go see what's going on with left tackle. We got Wyatt Millam. He's available. After that, it's a big drop off. Trapilo, Emory Jones, all of those guys are way down. So Wyatt Millam would be the best player available at tackle right now. Not sure if he plays left tackle though. So, yeah, that's where we're at with that. Now, best player available in positions that we need. We got TJ Sanders at defensive lineman. Let's look at safety. You got Kevin Winston Jr. and Andrew Makuba. That is, I think, because we have two safeties right now, I feel like we're at a very pivotal situation where we can get Ransom. We might. Man, we're at a tough situation. We're in a very unique situation right now. I do like Darian Porter from Iowa State at defensive back. I'm definitely a fan of Marcus Membu, interior offensive line, but I'm with I do agree we need to look at tackle versus guard more than anything. Let's see what's going on in the chat. 72. Man, that's TJ Sanders, defensive lineman, is staring right at me. I'm almost willing to pick him if I don't hear anything from anybody in the chat. Yeah, we already got Travion Henderson, Illinois Jones. He's already on our team. Let's go ahead and get Sanders, TJ Sanders. We picked him up. So now we got an interior defensive lineman. We've got an edge. And by the way, they gave us an A+ for that. So we did a good job. We got a tight end, an edge, a running back, and a defensive lineman. This is an exciting world we live in here, ain't it, Doug? Where we can just pick a team and have a draft day.
Yeah, you know what though? Like I said before,
Yeah.
college to go to the NFL, it may be becoming more and more like itself, because of all the transactions. You can go from one team to another, and it's almost like, trying to gauge like Big Ten, Southeast Conference. You can't do it anymore because players go wherever they want to go, and or where they're accepted. So it's almost like it breaks down some of the similarities that we had in years past. A certain type of player was going to go play in a certain conference or for a team. Those are all gone. Now it's almost, how high can you jump? How fast are you? All those sort of things. They're judging their physical. One thing they aren't judging is their toughness, and that's where someone like Steve McMichael, what test are you going to give him back in the day when he was, healthy and playing well? I don't know there's no intensity test, and you had to watch him. You had to watch him play, especially in the National Football League. I get back to this all the time because you get into a meeting with an NFL coach and offense or defense, like a Buddy Ryan, man, he is going to tear you apart. If you're doing something wrong or not, lack of effort, you would never ever see that in a college scenario, but you do see it in the NFL. Guys, they're worried about their job too. Everybody's worried about their own job. You're responsible for they're sticking around. So I get it. I understand why coaches get frustrated and call people names. And the favorite, Buddy used to always call you by your name, or he had a nickname for you, and the nickname wasn't very kind, wasn't friendly.
Yeah.
I'd much rather get 46 than some of the other things he came up with.
Yeah, you'd rather be a number than a dirty name or
that's what it was. An adjective.
A verb becomes your name. A verb becomes your name. Shout out to Burley Sullivan in the chat, man. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I appreciate everybody's view today. Right now, this is what we've got on deck so far. We're on Chicago Sports Podcast, 5 for Chicago, and we've got Colston Loveland, tight end Michigan, JT Tuamola, edge Ohio State, Travion Henderson, Ohio State running back, TJ Saunders, defensive lineman, South Carolina, A, B+, A+, A+. Doug Plank and myself are killing it in this draft. We are doing so good. So good. We feel like geniuses over here. So between linebacker and safety, I feel like linebacker is a bigger need only because we just let one walk. And I feel like that's a need. And also because we already have a bona fide, 2 starters at safety. So I'm going to go with Chris Paul Jr., linebacker out of Mississippi. We got an A out of that. So now we've got ourselves a bona fide linebacker there at 148. Good value. Think we're doing good. Pretty soon we'll be up. This goes very fast, Doug. Goes very fast.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Yeah. So next it'll be, best player available in the positions that we need.
Mhm.
It looks like they're calling for that we get an interior offensive lineman. Boston College, Texas Tech. I'm going to go with Caleb Rogers out of Texas Tech, interior offensive lineman. That's a good value there because we were at 233 and he was projected to go at 183. So I definitely like that. Now I will step out of this box and I will say this. I think we need to double down and pick up Jack Nelson, offensive tackle at Wisconsin, but I do want to look at the safeties and see who's available. I'm not mad at Dan Jackson from Georgia. I'm not mad at that at all. But I'm not mad at Craig Woodson from California either. I just think we need to go get more depth at tackle. So let's get Jack Nelson from Wisconsin. That was an A+ pick, by the way. Oh yeah, we killed it, bro. We killed it. There's our draft results. Thank you everybody for playing along. That was fun playing along with Doug with a mock draft simulator. It's crazy, Doug. Did you ever think you'd be doing something like this?
Never. Even as a coach, I never thought it would ever get down to this like electronic means. I think what happens too, though, even like the players that you choose on a team, if they're not playing right away, you got to remember all these guys were probably starters. That's what kind of made it easy for me when I first got here, and I was the fourth team safety in Chicago at training camp.
Sure.
I had only played special teams except for a couple games, five I started over 3 years. So I already had that chip on my shoulder. So I didn't need to be motivated. Nobody needed to turn me on, flip a switch or whatever you want to call it. I flipped my own switch. I took my own smelling salts. I prepared myself for this, and I ran onto the field, ran off the field. And so, the body follows the mind. Right. If you're a competitive person and you're always thinking, competition, harder, faster, quicker, stronger, you start thinking about things like that, you're going to improve. And I think right now, a lot of times it used to be a 6-game preseason, which meant you had plenty of time to show what you could do or not do. And now it's fast, everything quick, right. You see the contract and, you better perform. You better be quick. And here's the other thing. There's some players that don't really concentrate on what they're doing. They have what's called mental mistakes. Mental mistakes will beat you faster than anything else. Sure. They'll beat you so much faster than physical mistakes because usually you're going the wrong way and somebody is running into a touchdown in the end zone with the football. More games are lost by that, mental mistakes than physical mistakes. And so that's a big part of it. It's because you're graded every game, not just on your physical effort, but your mental acuity in terms of mistakes that you might have made during the game.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes sense because you want discipline out there. Yes. And, and that's where, and here's the other thing. 2 things you can control in life, folks. This is a transitional skill, even outside of football. The AAs, attitude and attendance. Attitude and attendance are 2 things that nobody else could control except you. You could control your attitude and you can control your attendance. And when it comes down for cutting time, for cutting the fat, you're going to look at somebody who's not there, who's not available, because sometimes the best ability is availability and a great attitude. And that goes a long ways. Now, you are looking at a product of that right now before your eyes, because as we speak in this draft, Diana Rossini says that this man right here, who I believe is a pretty darn good receiver with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I don't know what's going on with Pittsburgh, man, but they always seem to have one troubled child over there as a receiver who can't keep his freaking nose out of trouble. And George Pickens, the Steelers right now are receiving calls from him, And Pittsburgh is open to conversations as it navigates Friday night without a second-round pick because they traded for DK Metcalf. And DK Metcalf is amazing. He's a mountain of a man, physical specimen, athletic. He's a freak. But I'll tell you what, I'd keep Pickens in the building if he had a different attitude about him. And I don't know where he's going to go, but for a second round draft pick, there's probably a team out there that's looking at this guy saying he's probably better than a lot of people, other players that are available in this draft. And there might be somebody out there that could take this attitude on and hopefully get this young man in the right direction, Yeah,
there's no doubt. No doubt.
But folks, that is how you build a draft class. Thanks to Doug Plank. Thanks to our live audience and to you at home for riding with us, guys. Hit that like button, subscribe, smash that notification bell so you never miss a minute of Bears on Tracks. We'll be back all weekend with real-time draft reactions, expert breakdowns, and everything you need to know as Chicago rebuilds under Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson, folks. Again, tonight I will be up at Bridges Scoreboard with these young men, these baseball players, and their head coach. We're going to go check them out and cheer them on at 6:30 at Bridges Scoreboard. Make sure you reserve your tables. Give them a call up there. Tracks will be up there right after we're done with them. We're going to immediately break and go into live draft coverage, and we're going to go for immediate reactions over everybody. Hopefully we won't be flipping tables and all kinds of craziness and getting a little riled up about some. Listen, I forgot to tell you, Doug, me and this guy, we were so excited, dude. He was probably in his 70s, and he was a former, guitar player. No, he was a drummer. And I could tell because during the podcast, he kept pounding the table occasionally. And I'm like, were you a drummer, boy? And he goes, still am. And they were telling me about they showed me the website where they played and all this stuff, and pretty good band, and all this. So we're watching this game, and it's coming down to the wire. And this was the Hail Mary. I had him. I picked him up. And I said, I'm picking you up. He goes, okay, I'm picking you up. Okay. Because at this point in time, we thought we won before the Hail Mary. Remember? We were ahead. So we high-fived. I picked him up off the ground, and I'm like, are you okay? Are you okay? Because he kind of just was like, I don't know. I'm gonna walk around gingerly and figure out. And he's like, I'm okay. I'm like, thank God. So yeah, we got excited up there, Doug. We were having a good old time, but man, that freaking Washington game, talk about a debacle and a boring situation. And you've spoke about it a couple times watching that, man. We can't allow that to happen again. And I think with the guy that over there, I think Dennis Allen is going to get these guys dialed in for sure. He's going to make sure that they're all right. So,
Brandon, he's not all rah-rah. He's intelligent. He knows how to read data. He can evaluate players.
Yeah.
He's going to make intelligent decisions, whatever they are, whether it's calling a play, placing a personnel in the right place. And I believe that one of the skills that a coach should have is the ability to not negotiate, but to influence a person's attitude, to either get way up or bring them down. And, coaches need to do that. They need to get the right people on the bus, and then all of a sudden motivate them, instruct them, and just direct them, point to the right direction, and give them something that they can win with. And when you do all that, magical things start happening.
I agree, man, wholeheartedly. Doug, it was a pleasure and an honor. Thank you again. Have a great, nice, warm, sunny day in Arizona. Tell Mrs. Plank I said hello and thank her for being able to share you with us today. Is there any parting words that you have for our fellow listeners out there?
Well, no, I'll just say I love football because it's a lot like life. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. So many people are fast starters, but you get to the 4th or 5th inning, oh my gosh, they're out of breath and they're tired and they want to sleep. And same thing with athletics, and same thing with your occupation. I've had about 15 occupations in my life: franchises, separate businesses, real estate deals. And they're all the same. Get on the right team. Associate. There was a big banner at Ohio State when I was there. It said YAW, Y-A-W. It says, "You are who you are with." I never forgot it. And it was great for me the rest of my time in life, because every time I met someone, I thought, do I really want to be around this person? Do I want to hear what he has to say every day? No. Or yes. I mean, either one. And, they either can build you up or take you down. So you have the free choice.
Yeah, iron sharpens iron. Make sure you're around with people that are going to build you up and make you grow. And, because if you're not, wherever you're at, wherever you are in life, whatever you do, if you're not prepared for that biggest moment, if you come on a podcast with a legend in Doug Plank and you got a yapping dog, guess what? You won't be on when he's on again. You'll be in the bleachers watching him instead of being in here with us. So remember that, folks. Show up, show out, attitude and attendance. Be ready for that moment. Guys, it was a pleasure and honor with Doug Plank. Thank you again, as always. Enjoy day 2. Have a good time. Draft responsibly. Be safe out there. Chi-Town up, bear down. See you guys.